Hi, I'm Neil Hermes and I'm going to share with you some stories about one of my favourite birds. It's the Bush Stone-curlew. The Bush Stone-curlew is a weird bird. It's a nocturnal bird that originally probably was an ocean edge bird, and it's now adapted its life to live in the bushlands of southern Australia, bushlands of Australia, including Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria. It's also called the thick-knee because they have very stout legs, and overseas they're called thick-knees as well. But we'll call it the stone-curlew. The stone-curlew is a bird which lives largely on the ground and is vulnerable to predation by animals like foxes. It nests on the ground and its eggs are vulnerable to foxes and dogs and the like. Fire and fire management can also have an impact on this particular bird. The curious thing about the bush stone-curlew is in parts of Queensland, they're an extremely common bird still. In fact, you'll see them stalking around caravan parks and suburban areas, and they seem to be very comfortable living close to people in suburban settings. And yet in southern Australia, they're now a highly endangered bird in New South Wales and Victoria, and in fact in the ACT they're extinct. The last wild birds were seen decades ago. So something about the habitats that this particular bird lives in southern Australia have affected it badly, and those same impacts haven't had the same sort of response in northern Australia. Fortunately for the stone-curlew, it's a very interesting looking bird and a very diagnostic bird, and people are interested in it and wanting to do things to help it. So a project started in Canberra in 2014 where they reintroduced some stone-curlews into a reserve near the city of Canberra called Mulligan's Flat. And those birds were released within an area that's fenced away from cats and dogs and foxes. These birds are doing well, and in fact some of them are now recorded leaving the reserve and going into suburban areas of parts of Canberra, which is a fantastic thing. We're likely to learn over the next few years, however, how successful they're likely to be when they get away from these reserves and don't have the reserve as their principal place to live. But the bush stone-curlew, or bush thick-knee as you may see it written sometimes, is a fascinating nocturnal bird that walks around on the ground and has this amazing story about its distribution in Australia. And that's the reason why it's one of my favourite birds. And you can read more about it and other stories about these sorts of birds on this website.